How well do your kids know you? Now, I'm not talking about the type of creamer you like, which my kids know what kind of coffee creamer I like. They may know what it means when you slip on your jeans and put on makeup instead of wearing sweatpants. My kids will usually ask, where are you going? They know me so well. But I think harder is letting our kids really know our hearts. What's going on inside and what really matters. And I'll be talking about that today with my guest, who's Susan Merrill. She is an author, a speaker. She has done so much with her husband, Mark, on just encouraging parents to be active in their children's lives. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this. We talk a lot about the new journals that they have out and how God has used that and will continue to use that in the lives of their family. And I think it's so important to open our heart to our kids, to really share some of the deeper things. And I know it's hard to think about taking time, sharing stories. So, what better way to do it than within the pages of a journal where you can write down, pour out your heart, leave it on your kid's pillow, and then later can answer you. Not only are you communicating, really sharing your hearts with each other, but also it's a keepsake for your child to hold onto. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview with Susan Merrill.
You're listening to Walk It Out with Trisha Goyer, where we discover what it looks like to follow God and be swept away on the journey of a lifetime. Author of over 70 books, mom of 10, yes, 10, homeschooler and speaker, Trisha Goyer will explore what radical obedience to God's word looks like. It's time to hear from God lovers who've dared to say yes. Listen in to heart chats and learn how others overcame doubts and fears. Discover how God used ordinary people to impact others one step at a time. If you're ready to get radical, get going, and make a difference in this world, you're at the right place. Here's your host, prolific writer, world traveler, people lover, and mega nap taker, Trisha Goyer.
Well, friends, I'm walking out today. I'm talking to someone who has been a friend for a while. It's so fun to reconnect with her. So, welcome, Susan Merrill.
Oh, it's so good to be here. And you're right. We could talk for hours because I haven't seen you
We
in a long time.
I know. We did. I love it so much. I just love just reconnecting with people, and I love the journey of being in Christian ministry, the people you meet along the way, and then just seeing what God has been doing with them. But first, for those who may not be familiar with you or would just love to know more, tell us a little bit just about your life and your family.
Oh my gosh, that's too long of a story. Well, I'm married to Mark Merrill. He is a go-getter, and early in our marriage, he was practicing law and I was in banking. We had our first child and somehow ended up in ministry. That's a really long story, but we started something called Family First, and that kind of morphed into after we did a study on fatherlessness, All Pro Dad, and then we started iMom, and then we adopted more kids. We had three and adopted two more. And it has been a roller coaster that's really, really been fun and a great journey. And like you said, you meet a lot of really neat people along the way, and it's fun to reconnect and compare notes and to see what God's doing.
Yeah, and what I love is just this, I mean, like, we're all there to support each other and encourage each other and,
Mhm.
like, "What are you doing? How can I help?" And,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's so fun. It's really cool because in Arkansas, I see a lot of all pro dad stuff happening just in our
nice.
schools. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about that because you mentioned, just fatherlessness, and I think working with teen moms, I work with them here in inner city Little Rock. We have our teen mom support group, and
Mhm.
honestly, like maybe 1 out of 20 has some good involvement with a dad in their lives. And I think that is kind of one of the things that is a big struggle for young people today.
Yeah, that was kind of an epiphany that came because of that study. So we had hired the Wortham Group to do a study on fatherlessness. Mark at the time was friends with Jeb Bush, and Jeb had actually wanted him to come to Tallahassee and be part of his cabinet up there. And but we were doing this, and Mark really felt called we needed to stay. But Mark helped on his transition team and was actually the transition person, part of assessing the juvenile justice system when Jeb was going into office. And it was kind of prompted this thing that so many of the juvenile delinquents in prison had no father, and so
Mhm.
he we did this study and realized that that is in fact the case, and kind of proved that theory. And we're thinking, okay, we can how can we get fatherhood how can we get dads to see that fatherhood is cool and great and a worthy calling? And at the time, we were going to church with some Bucks coaches and kind of shared with them that, everybody loves football. We love football. And, players and coaches can really use their platform for good if they would. We, at the time, didn't see many doing that. And wouldn't it be cool if we did something around football? And they, of course, were working. Tony and Clyde Christensen was the one we were talking to. He said, Tony would love this. And Mark and Tony got together and they decided to just have an event at the stadium and to say, for dads and kids to come and watch a practice, and Tony would speak to them and stuff. And 5,000 showed up. It was crazy. We were not prepared. And that was just an epiphany for both Mark and Tony to think, you know what? I'm a coach, but I can use what I do to draw men into the world of parenting and give them excitement about it and help them to see God's plan for the father in that. And that was the start.
Yeah, that I love that. I love just the impact that we you tell dads that you make a huge impact in your kids' lives. And
Yeah.
growing up, I didn't know my biological dad. I had a very distant relationship with my stepdad, and I could see so much of my struggle, especially during my teen years, was connected with that. And so my husband is so involved in our kids' lives, which
Yeah.
I am so thankful for. But it makes a huge difference to have that involvement.
Well, and the funny thing, we base the All Pro Dad program on a verse in Malachi. And it says, turn the hearts of the children to their fathers and the hearts of the fathers to the children. And really, when you look at everything a mom does, the
Mhm.
mom has to know about their, doctor's appointments and their academics and, how they're feeling emotionally with their friends. And we just zone in. We look at everything. But if a dad will just connect with his kids, heart connection, it raises all the things the moms worry about without them even focusing on it. It's the most amazing thing. Um, Kids who have dads involved in their lives do better in school. They're less
Mhm.
at risk for, criminal activity. They're less at risk for teen pregnancy. It's just a connection, um, and that's just the way God designed us.
Yeah, I love that so much. When we brought our kids home, it was amazing how they connected with John sooner because he was just like all about the fun and all
Yeah,
about
yeah,
watching
I know.
movies
Darn it,
together and
right?
all that stuff. And I'm like trying to get everyone on schedule, make sure they get up in time, doing all the
Packing
things. And
lunches. Who wear your shoes? You can't go to school without your shoes. A dad would probably take him to school without their shoes.
yeah. So it is amazing. I'm thankful for that relationship. But that is such a good thing. And I love what you're doing with dads. But I also know you have I Mom too. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about that and just your heart for moms.
Yeah, I really okay, my oldest daughter just had a child, and that has just really even heightened my passion for moms because I see moms struggling with a lot of things that
Mhm.
I never even were on my radar. And I think being a mom is getting harder. And I just feel like that's the enemy's plan to frustrate parents is to take the joy out of parenting.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually, I moved from, I founded iMom, and then we have like content people here and things. And so I've had to move a little more on the digital marketing side and do some things for the organizations. I've been working on that a long time, and I'm just getting back to iMom. I'm kind of looking at some things and doing a lot of research. And I'm concerned for our moms.
Yeah.
I have had so many, by this point, women who've worked for me and left, had babies and left, and they always come back. And we have coffee. I have coffees every week with former employees because we just love chatting about their kids now, and I hear about their struggles. And I tell you, I want to encourage our moms today to know that they are the best for their child, that God wouldn't have given them this child if they weren't the best mom for this child, and to be more confident in whatever style of parenting they choose. And I could go on and on. But yeah, that's where I am right now in
Yeah.
pondering motherhood.
My oldest is 30. My youngest is 8. That's a lot of
Big
years,
gap.
a
Yeah.
lot of years of parenting, but the first 3, I feel like I mean, raising the first 3 is completely different than raising
Oh,
these last
yeah.
7 because there wasn't social media. There
Right.
wasn't, like, me during the day, like, "Hey, I'm gonna post this and see how many comments I get," or I mean, it was just me in my house, and we were reading books, and I don't
Mhm.
know, it was
Mhm.
just so different then than it is now, and I think it's helped me, like, the best thing is seeing that, okay, they all survive, like, kind of are responsible adults, like, it's
Yeah.
okay, but and I think a lot of I don't worry, I guess, as much about other people's opinions because
No.
I know, like, in the end, all of us are gonna have struggles, all of us are gonna have successes, and it's okay. But like you said, these young moms that are like, this is their life, this is their world, this is their interactions. It is hard to feel like almost like you're parenting for the approval of I mean, just an arena of people out there that have all sorts of opinions.
Well, and I'll tell you what else, it's isolating. So,
Mhm.
you're right. You've gone through the whole process to adulthood, so you have a confidence knowing that that helps you parent now, and that but that's something very few moms get because
Yeah, yeah.
you've been parenting a lot of kids, so you've kinda had that benefit. But what I see is because there's so many more choices and because of our culture, moms kind of get in these little camps, like organic food versus non-organic, what do you call it? Vaccines versus
Mhm.
non-vaccines, homeschool versus public school versus private school versus Christian school versus charter school, and they get in these little camps, and I see some of my sweet friends, um, you know, almost afraid to share with each other because, oh, well, I know she doesn't do that, and so she's either going to try to win me to her camp or she's not going to understand, so we can't talk about that issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
uh, like, oh, you feed your child that, well, and they're either going to, so they're almost like isolating. They've said to me, like some of their friends, and said to me, oh, well, I said, well, have you talked to so and so about that, because she's kind of in your same situation? She goes, no, we really can't talk about that. It breaks my heart because when I was parenting, we talked. You
Right.
know, we talked to our friends, and we talked to, you know, so it is very different today, and it's a different culture, and people are more opinionated but less willing to like understand each other and be okay with it. Like, oh, that's great that you don't do vaccines. That's really cool. Oh, my kids are vaccinated. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's not that. Yeah, it's hard for them, and then they become isolated, and then they're not sharing each other's struggles, which is what makes parenting easier, is knowing, oh yeah, you're going through that too, gosh, me too. Okay, good, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, and I think because, there's less face-to-face time, like, some of
Mhm.
these things, I think we'd have an easier time discussing it face-to-face because 'cause we're face-to-face, like, we're
Right.
enjoying a cup of coffee, our kids are playing at our feet, it doesn't become that big of issue, where if we're trying to talk about these things, like, over social media, then someone takes something the wrong way, and it just becomes oh, so challenging, and I think, I mean, just in general, people are more isolated and not having that face-to-face time, and my daughter, she just became a mom too, her little girl's 8 months old, but she lives in the Czech Republic, and
Oh
they get
my word.
they get 3 years paid maternity leave. So
3 years.
3
My daughter
3
got 3 months.
yeah, so there's no childcare. Unless, like, grandma's watching it or something, like, but these
Yeah.
women are home. So they are meeting at the park, they're going on hour-long stroller walks together, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what an amazing thing." 'Cause so she's building I mean, and she's a Christian, and most people in the Czech Republic are not, but she's having these face-to-face conversations and relationships with people that I think we are really missing out because if we do get face-to-face, it's like once every 2 weeks for
Yeah.
30 minutes as we're running to different places, and I think we are just missing out. Personally, even though I've been a mom for many years, like this fall, I'm like, I need to work in time to have face-to-face things with people in our lives. Like, not just because I have a lot of friends online, and there's, I love chatting with people on this podcast and different things, but I was really missing out of. So, we signed up to have small group at our house once a month. I'm like, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy, but I need this in my life. But it does take us realizing like there's something missing when we don't have that face-to-face time.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too that is complicated, I think, with the younger moms is more of them are working, and that's a lot of pressure. By the time they get home, they're tired, they want to see their
Mhm.
children, and so it is harder to find time for relationship, and that creates more isolation.
Yeah. Oh, all the things. Okay, so we need hope.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, let's get positive here. We're gonna,
We need
um,
Okay, but okay, one of the things I do want to talk about, and I think this is back to building relationships, is
mhm.
I have two books. They're from me to you, a conversation journal for you and your daughter, and a conversation journal for you and your son. And I'm so excited about these. And my kids were like digging through. I'm like, can we do this? I'm like, wait till after the interview, so we can't get them yet. And I'm gonna have to definitely get more copies because I have
We've
seven
got a lot
children
of
in
kids.
my
Yeah,
home.
yeah. Well,
But yeah, tell us about these.
this was a really neat thing that God just made happen when my kids were younger. So my daughter Megan is the oldest. And with the oldest, you're always coaching them, especially when you have lots of little ones behind them, because the little ones just want our attention. And so she was, often getting frustrated with some of her younger siblings. And I coached her, I said, you're the oldest, I told her why. And I said, you just need not to escalate it. And you need to like receive it, know that they're younger and have patience and compassion for them. So anyway, we were driving to school one day and, her younger sister was purposely trying to get her attention and annoying her in the process. And she was giving me that Megan was giving me that look in the rearview mirror, like, "Do you see me? I'm not reacting. Do you see me?" And of course, I saw her, but I couldn't say anything in front of the other kids because then the coaching's out of the bag. And I dropped them all off, and I thought, "Oh my goodness, I have got to remember to praise her for that." But I moved quickly on to other things, and I'm not good about remembering. So I didn't want to forget this coaching opportunity. So I went home and I thought, I'm just going to write her a note, put it on her bed. She'll get it tonight and I can check it off my list. And I did. I literally checked it off my list, forgot all about it. Well, I went to bed that night, and on my pillow was a note from her.
Oh,
She had flipped the paper over and writ me back, "Thank you, Mom, for noticing. I was trying really hard," and blah, blah. And she spilled several things that had happened that day. And I thought, this is great. This is how I'm gonna, you have to go to the kids who are neediest the most. And it's never your oldest usually because they can handle more. They're older. And I thought this would be a great thing for us. And I started journaling with her and asking her questions, and it went back and forth and back and forth. And then my other daughter wanted one, and then my husband got jealous and said, "I want one." And uh, we said, this has to be a journal. And we actually made the first version of this was called Pillow Talk. And then, when Harvest House said, we want to do it again, but they wanted a boys and girls version, we changed the name from To Me to You. When we were doing these books, like revising them and creating the boys and girls version, Megan was at home with her husband. They had come down to visit. They're from DC, and she was reading it. She called her husband over and she said, "Just read this." And he read it, and he laughed out loud. He goes, "You have not changed one bit." And that was the unexpected blessing from these journals is my kids have this history, and we would often go back and say, "Remember, you dealt with this problem before. Let's go back and find that journal. What did we do? This is a pattern." They have this history of us writing back and forth, answering these questions about what was going on in their life. And we did see trends in them and patterns of things that were either going to be, strengths or weaknesses that they learned through these deep conversations. It was just a great thing all the way around.
yeah,
So,
and I think now that we have adult kids, we can see like, oh, this is why they acted this way when they were
yes,
3.
yes, we're still
And
struggling with that.
We're still struggling. I mean, my strong-willed one ended up being the one that moved to Europe when she was 20 to be a missionary. She just had that will in her. When she was
Yep.
3, we would fight over what shirt she was going to wear, but that ended up benefiting her. And I love that you can see patterns in their lives. Two of my girls, especially, deal with anxiety, and I talk with them over and over, like, you can't let your thoughts run away. Take a deep breath. Let's pray about it. Like, we're going through the same things, but I'm like, oh my goodness, this will be so good that, if I'm not around, she can go and get a journal. And when we, talk about, I mean, different ways to encourage her, that will be written down in my handwriting on paper that she can turn to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would probably be her answer to the question, if you could change one thing about yourself, what would you change? My
Hmm.
anxiety, it's hard to live with anxiety, and how do you do that? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a really sweet process and a really, really great tool. And I tell people all the time, you know, some people say, "Oh, well, my kids won't talk." Well, your kids will talk when it's bedtime.
Right.
And what my kids would always do when I was tucking in another child is they'd start writing in the journal, and half the time we ended up talking about what they had written in person, just because they had fleshed it out. Especially older kids, sometimes they don't want to see your reaction when they bring up something that they're not quite sure about. They'd rather write about it, and then it helps you when you write back or approach them about it not to be reactive, because you already know their heart. And I think the older your kids get, the more that kind of comes into play, where they're struggling with things they're seeing in the world or in their friends or in their culture, and they're not sure how you'll react, but they feel like they want to talk to you about it. Um, it's a great tool.
Yeah, and I think as I mean, as adults, and all our brain is developed and we understand communication better. Like, I mean, it's hard for us. Like, conversations are hard for us, and we have a fully developed brain that knows, how at least hopefully has learned how to communicate. And but kids sometimes, I think it takes even that process of slowing down enough to really think of their thoughts of what they want to say, and then putting it down in paper kind of helps them with that thinking, processing part of their brain that they might not know as much as we do when it comes to communication.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in those really hormonal years. They're feeling so much, but they can't sort it in their head. It's just like spilling around in their brain. And it's not easy. Those are not easy years. So,
No, I have a 14-year-old right now, and she'll just be standing there doing her chore, like, which is loading the dishwasher, a couple days a week, and she'll start crying. I'm like,
oh
what
no.
is going on? She's like, I was thinking of these lyrics from this song, and he lost his true love. And I'm like, you have too many hormones in your
Oh my
body right
poor
now. I mean,
girl.
they're just like surging through her. And I'm like, because I don't, like, in the day, a lyric will pop in my mind and I'll just start like bawling out loud.
It's
Like,
true. It's true. It's
oh
so
my,
true.
it's,
It's
yeah,
hard.
it's
Girls
hard.
are so funny. Girls are so funny.
Oh my goodness. I have 6 of them in my house. 6
Oh
girls.
my gosh, I can't. You're a hormone factory.
Oh my, yeah, yeah. 12 is the hardest, I will say. 12 years old girls,
I know.
that is really hard.
Yeah, I don't want to go back ever.
Yeah. But okay, so I just opened this journal because I'm like, I need to share some of these so people will know. Okay, this is the one that I opened to. One of the thing of all the things you do for me, the one I appreciate the most is, and then because. I'm like,
Yeah.
just if I did that tonight, because I only have one girl journal, I need to buy some more. But
No, yeah.
just if I did that on
I'm
a piece of
sorry.
paper.
I'm sorry I sent you a boy journal. I should have sent you more
Well,
girls.
I do have an 8-year-old boy who is like,
Okay.
he's mommy's boy. Like, he loves cuddling with me, and yeah.
Oh,
But I'm just thinking, if I just wrote that on a piece of paper tonight and gave it to all of them, that would just mean so much.
you
Um,
know,
you know, just
you know,
sharing what we appreciate about them.
I have a team here, a digital marketing team, and we every year do a retreat. We just did our retreat, and we did this whole like assessment of what is your personality type, and this one, and they're all into Enneagram now, So we did all these different assessments, and but one of the things I had asked them is, how do I win a gold star with you? And it's like this question, you know, um, if you, and all kids are different, all people are different. Every person on my team had a different answer to that. But if you know what your child most appreciates, then you can delight them every day. But sometimes we just don't even stop to think, what is it that I do for them that they really appreciate? I need to do that more.
Yeah, that is a oh, that's a great question too. Ah, so much to think about. But you're
Yeah,
right. I mean, this really goes to the heart of the thing. And we could be doing something for one of our kids or that we think like this is really hitting the mark, which it's not. Like they're
exactly.
missing something.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. Their little brains, are just so many parts of them are hidden. So it's really fun to hear what they write and really get to know their heart better and their mind because they're always changing.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, and going through different things and things that we didn't think about. Like my one daughter that just turned 12, that just is, turned so sassy. The sweet little thing turned sassy. The other day, she's like, am I old enough to shave my legs? And I'm like, are we having this conversation? Like, why do we have to do this?
Oh,
Just stay little. I'm not ready for
yeah,
more
yeah.
conversations like so they're thinking about things that I wasn't even on my radar that she's already like thinking about shaving her legs and
She's
all.
got all of those older sisters. She
Oh
can't
my
help
goodness.
it.
I know. It's so good. So I'm super excited to do with this with my kids and get them because I know that they will be excited about like just sharing their heart and pouring it out and getting my response back. Like they'll probably like every day like, "Mom, did you write in mine? Did you write it in
Oh,
mine?"
no, it did, and you know what? I only have 5 kids, you have so many, and they'd be, "You haven't written me in 3 days." I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna be up all night writing."
I
But you like
know.
to write. You like to write, so there you go.
There we go. It'll be good. It'll be good. I'm excited. But I mean, I think now that we have older kids, I think looking back, it's things like these that are the things that matter, that make a difference. And other things that I think about are time around the dinner table and, reading the Bible together. I mean, these things I think that sometimes when we're young moms and, it's our just trying to figure out life, those kind of things often get pushed to the side, but
Yeah,
like writing in the journal and sitting around the table and sitting down and reading a scripture verse. I mean, those things we can see as they're adults that they made a difference. So I would just love to hear kind of your thoughts about, if you were to give encouragement to your younger self, that
yeah.
looking back, what encouragement would you give?
I would tell myself that the things I probably think are important are not important. I feel like we focus more on seeing results in our children versus the process.
Hmm.
And, things like this journal, we're more, busyness is a badge of honor today. And we're so busy, so busy, so busy. And this race, Pinterest birthday parties and academic scholarships and, just all the pictures on Instagram of all the great things our family did versus the transparency of um, what's really going on in my day, uh, puts a focus not on the heart but on worldly things. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we are raising children to be adults. We're not raising children for us. And we have to prepare them for adulthood. And the whole process is about preparing them to report to God, not us. And they have to have that faith ready to leave home. And that's a hard issue. And so if we're worrying, that their baseball uniform is clean and instead of, you know, did they ask forgiveness for something they did, or how are they struggling with something at school relationally? We're missing the point. And I do see, we're it's so easy for me to be distracted, and I didn't have a cell phone when my kids were really little. So when I walk in a restaurant and I see 2-year-olds on iPads,
Hmm.
um, instead of having a chat about the meal or about the surroundings or whatever, I just get so sad when I walk outside my door and see a mom walking a child talking on the phone versus saying, "Do you see the grass? The grass is green. Do you see the butterfly?" It makes me like, "Oh Lord, where's this going?" Because we really don't have any data on that yet. We
Right.
do know that Gen Z, or the I generation as they're called, is remarkably different because for the first time ever, it is not the oldest generation that is the loneliness, it is the youngest. So we
Mhm.
know that this Gen Z is very lonely. And I have to wonder, I don't have any data for this, I have to wonder, is that because they're not connecting with their parents? Is that because their parents are distracted and busy? And I can say this because I am easily distracted. Like
Right.
I am the director of digital marketing. I love every tool. I have screens all over. I have Slack. I have Monday. I have you name it. I have tools for it. Software. Um, I am in and out of applications all day. It's a part of my job. So I can I love to bounce like that. And I could probably go home if my husband didn't get mad at me and have my screen on in bed all night looking at things.
Yeah.
Um, I have a great disciplinarian in my husband. He's like, no, turn it off. uh, so I know how easy it is, what a temptation it is to be online. But I think we have to guard against that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to connect with our kids, um, and we have so moms, if you're listening to this, put down that phone and look into the eyes of your child. No it is a scientific fact that eye contact um, develops a child. So if we just look at our children, if we love them, if we connect with them, if we process with them, if we help them on their journey, if we teach them about the Lord and love, that those are the wins. And staying accountable to that is the tough part.
Yeah, and I love that so much, and I do think that it's something that we know. It's not something that's easy to do. But
Right.
one of my talks, I speak at homeschool conferences, and one of my talks I did this last year was a new talk. It was 40 ways to be present in your child's day, and these are two homeschool moms who have
Right.
our children are home all day long, like,
Right.
and every conference the room was packed.
Wow.
Um, so it just goes to show, like, here are I choose to have my kids home all day because I want to be an influence in their lives, but we're still struggling with this, even though we have them all day. So it's not just a time factor, it is an attention factor. And so, yeah, it's important.
You have adopted kids, so you've probably heard this, but we adopted our two when they were older, they were 9 and 13. So when we were going to attachment counseling, attachment therapy, the attachment therapist taught me something I will never forget. And I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody else who has, but she used it. It was beautiful. She had this picture of a mom and a baby, and at the top of the diagram, the baby is is crying, and then over around the circle, the baby's being changed. At the bottom, the baby was being fed, and the last part of the circle, the mom was holding the baby and smiling and looking into the baby's eyes. And she
Hmm.
held it up to my son and she said, "Now, Grant, I want to tell you that scientifically, an infant must be picked up 30 times a day between changing, feeding, crying. On average, if you have an infant, you're touching that child 30 times a day." And she said, "So, which baby are you?" Because this feeding thing happens like 6 times a day, and this changing thing 6 times a day, and blah blah blah. And he pointed to the baby at the top who was crying, and she said, "Now, Grant, you survived infanthood. You're 9, so this feeding, changing thing must have happened, you know." And she said, "I know you don't remember, you can't remember, but why do you think you're the baby crying?" And he said, "Because I was never that baby looking at the mommy."
Hmm.
And she said, "So what do you think about big people then?" And he said, "They're bad."
Hmm.
And she went on to explain that that is trust for a child comes right after infanthood, in infanthood. And I remember when I gave birth, your baby makes that kind of panicked cry when they're born. And I saw this with Megan's, my daughter's baby. I was there in the living room, panic cry when they come out. But it doesn't take but a week or two, and it turns into wah wah. I'm hungry because they know.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to be fed. Oh, if I just let out a little whine, they're going to change me. And so they relax and they leave that fear side of the brain. The whole point to this is connecting with our kids is has biological and eternal consequences
Hmm.
and blessings. And if we're not looking in their eyes and we're not answering them, and we're not meeting their needs, and here in the US, okay, not like always, but most times, basic needs are met. Food is provided. There's very few children in the US who are starving. But I'd say those higher needs are not going met if Gen Z is the loneliest generation. So we got to get on it.
Yeah, that is so good, and I love that, that eye contact, that connection, that holding, that I mean, all those things. When we got two of our kids, they were 2 and 5, and the 2-year-old, he would not make eye contact. So he liked when I held him and sang. Sometimes he'd try to squirm, but I would just hold him and sing and just look into his eyes. And I mean, for 6 months, he just darted his eyes around. Like he did not want to make eye contact. And then finally he did. I'm like, okay, we are getting somewhere. He's starting
Yes.
to make eye contact. And then our little girl, who was 5 at the time, she wanted to play baby. So she wanted me to hold her. She wanted me to pretend I was feeding her a bottle. She wanted me to pretend to change her diaper. And I would just do it, I mean, multiple times a day. Play baby, play baby. It's okay. She's the baby. I'm changing you. I'm burping you. And finally we get into therapy and I tell this and she's like, well, the therapist's like, what have you been doing? She's like, I'm like, I've been playing baby. She's like, perfect. Because
Yes.
obviously there's something missing that she thought, okay, and they'd been moved around so much in foster care. She's like, this is what she needed. She needed you to hold her, rock her, pat her back, to pretend to change her diaper over and over. And finally she grew out of that. But it's just like kids know that they need that. And we're like, here's a tablet, play with this.
Yeah.
Which is not what they need.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And the great thing is, all this is very fixable.
Yeah.
These are all simple things in our country. These are such simple things, you
Yeah.
know? So
And
it's
even with the older girls, that means, walking over, giving them a hug. Like,
oh, yeah.
"How are you doing?" They still like me to help them fix their hair. They're teenagers. "Can you fix my hair?" For church. I'm like, "Yep. Come here.
Isn't
I'll
that
color your hair."
Isn't that the funniest transition? My husband really struggled with that because he, like, our kids got older and he would like go up and hug them at the football game or whatever. And they're like, Dad, stop it. And he'd get so hurt. And I say, honey, you got to choose where you hug them now.
Yeah.
You got to hug them. You got to hug them. And he goes, I just hugged her this morning and she was fine. And now I try to hug her at the game and she's pushing me away. I go, think about the difference. You
Yeah.
gotta hug them in private. Don't embarrass them in public. And that was like so hard for me to get so hurt. But yeah, it's being even sensitive to things like that. Now that they're adults, we can hug them anywhere. They've grown up. But at the time, they go through these little phases and you gotta learn.
Yeah, I was just texting with a friend today, and she's like, "I just feel." She's talking about her teenage son. I think he's 15. I just feel him pulling away, and I'm like, "Just do the side by side thing. Take him out for smoothies. Just talk about his basketball or whatever." And I said, "Don't worry, he'll come back around." Like my older adult boys, they love coming and hanging out and giving me hugs. I mean, it's the season. There's that pull away season, but you just be there, spend that time with them as best you
You,
can.
you
Know
know
what
what the mom
that's
connection is
open.
with boys? The mom connection with boys is food. I am
That's so
so
true.
convinced of it. My son, after practice, he's my oldest son is really quiet. And I figured out the best time to talk to him was after practice. He was starving. Drive through somewhere, let go of the junk food thing. Who cares? Drive through somewhere because he's starving. Get him something, and he would talk. Somehow it was eating, it was sitting side by side and not really having to look at me. I don't know what it is. But to this day, my oldest son now owns a house 6 blocks from us. comes over for dinner almost every night. Hey, mom, what you making? It's all about
Yeah.
the food. It's
Yeah,
all about,
it's so
and then
true.
he kind of dumps his work day, and I get to hear about it, and blah 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 blah. And then he's like, "I'm out of here. Bye."
Yep.
It's food.
Yeah,
So
that is so true, yeah. Yeah, my boys live in the same town as me, so they're, yeah, eating at our table often, and I
yes,
always say, like, "What are you doing?" Or I'll get the text, "What are you doing tonight?" "Well, we're having
yep.
this. You wanna come over?"
Yeah, mine is doesn't even wait for the invitation. He goes, "Are you cooking tonight?" Straight up.
I
So,
love that. Oh, so many good things, but it
mm,
goes back to being intentional and being focused and, eye contact and all that stuff. Just realizing that those are the things that you're not gonna regret. We're not gonna regret those meals, whether it's side by side across the table. We're not gonna regret taking time to, write in these journals. I mean, all those things,
yeah, and to
when they're older,
the
it's gonna make a difference.
it's gonna make a difference, and to the working moms, I always feel a little angst putting more pressure on them to do something, like a journal,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
I just wanna say, you know what? This would be something that, again, it'll take time to answer kids, but you won't feel like we didn't have time for the conversation. There'll be a
Right.
peace that comes from this. Because I know, like you, if you have multiple kids or if you're working where you're working and you have multiple kids, it's sometimes hard to get those solid conversations in where you feel like when you go to bed, okay, we touched today. I touched
Mhm.
her. I know something. It's often the opposite. You go to bed thinking, oh my gosh, did we have any real conversations? Or I kind of noticed this about her. She was upset about something, but we never got to talk about it. This kind of gives the space to do that in the time when it's available. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it does.
not in the moment. And that's a really cool thing. So for a working mom or a mom who has multiple kids and little time, I'd say it is an investment of something you have to do, but it does create space and time for you to do it in. Because let's say you observe something in your child, like one comes home and they're kind of in a bad mood or something, and then you rush to get dinner ready, and then you dash to get them all in bed, and then one of them has a homework project they forgot about, and you never get to talk to that child. um, you can go get the journal and write in there on one of the questions. And that's what I tell people. You don't have to go to an order. You just have to find a question that goes with it. Say, I noticed today you looked a little upset about something, and I kind of was wondering what's going on in your heart, and where are you? And it must have been something that happened in school, and I want you to know I'm praying for you. And and then they can get back to you and say, nah, I just got my period, it wasn't that, or you
Yeah.
know nothing's wrong, or yes, something did happen today, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of bummed about it.
That is so good. I love it. Again, the journals are called From Me to You, a conversation journal for you and your daughter, and then for you and your son. So, I am super excited to incorporate this with my kids. I know they're gonna love it. They're
Mhm.
gonna love
I
any
hope so.
attention. I mean, they just love that focused attention and just telling them how amazing we think they are. It makes all the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, it's true. It really does.
Well, Susan, where can my listeners find more information about you and Mark and all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, again, we have many websites. Mark has his own website, and I'm going to confess right now, I have my own website, but I have not been in the blogging realm. I have been in the team building realm. So, but you can find us also on allfordad.com, imom.com, familyfirst.com, markmerrill.com, susanme.com if you want to reach out to me and send me a message. And then, we're all over social media and different places like that. So reach out. We love hearing from parents, and our whole mission is to help parents love well. And we just feel like, the greatest commandment is to second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, and our closest neighbor is our family.
Yeah.
And if we do that well, then they're going to learn how to do it well with those beyond, like your daughter. Oh, in the Czech Republic, that's amazing. Way to go. So cool.
I know. We need to do that. Coffee time. We can figure this out
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. It was really fun to catch up with you. And to hear that you have 7 children now at home. That's crazy.
7
Wow.
more, yep. A little bit busy.
Yeah, a little busy. You're amazing.
I'm so thankful for people like Susan who really just remind us what is most important, that has older kids, kind of like I have, and just says, you know what? It's so important just connect with your kids, to train them, to teach them. We get busy taking them to soccer practice or baseball practice or picking out new shoes at the mall, which they get so excited about. But really, are we taking the time to share our hearts, share our lives, and share God and His goodness with our kids? It's so important to do, and it's so easy to push that to the side until all of a sudden they're in their teen years or young adults, and we're saying, what's going on? Well, maybe they're making bad choices because we didn't give them a strong foundation. We provided all their physical needs, we provided all their social needs, all their sports needs, but we didn't spiritually build them up so they have a strong foundation to stand on. I think for sure, if there's one thing you take away, just the importance of doing that today. Now, today's Walk It Out verse is Deuteronomy 6:5-9. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Take heart these words that I give you today. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you're at home or away, when you lie down or get up. Write them down, maybe in a journal. It doesn't say that, but I'm adding that. Write them down and tie them around your wrist and wear them as headbands as a reminder. Write them on door frames of your houses and on your gates. So we are the ones that need to, first of all, love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and strength, because that modeling will make the biggest impact on our kids. But then take the words that we know are from God and write them down, repeat them to our kids, talk about them, let our kids know what God is doing in our lives, and let your kids know that He can do the same in their lives, so they will have a spiritual foundation. Take a record, write it down, whether it's a notebook or a journal or anything. Just let your kids know your spiritual foundation so that they can start developing their own. It's so important. So thank you so much for tuning in to Walk It Out today. I know that you will be inspired, and I'm just going to close us with our prayer like I always do. Dear God, thank you so much for Mark and Susan Merrill and all they were doing to support families, to encourage families just to put family first and to dig in with their kids and spend that time with their kids. I pray a blessing over them on their ministry, and I pray for each one of us that we will take the time to help our kids build that strong spiritual foundation, that we won't get to 5 years from now and look back and say, what a waste of time. I wasted it on so many things. And my kid doesn't have that foundation. I pray that each of us will give us an urgency to build that spiritual foundation with our kids. Thank you, Lord, for all you do. Well, thank you for tuning in again. I pray that you will be blessed. I pray that you will turn to God and that His Spirit will work through you this week to impact your kids. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Walk It Out. Head over to the show notes for this podcast and all past episodes at www.walkitoutpodcast.com. If you love the show, share it with someone you know who can make a radical difference in the world. We love new friends. See you next time.